Hello, welcome all. Welcome to this first edition of the Art and Craft of Game Programming. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Ivo Duarte. Ivo Duarte worked in several gigs in game programming, and now, after traveling through Spain, the United Kingdom and Sweden, he finally came to Portugal, where he is creating the Inner Sea, and he's going to show us today a bit of what he is doing in this game. So, without further ado.
Okay. Hello? Yes, hello. I was asked to do this in English, but I am Portuguese. So I'm here to talk about a bit the game that I'm currently working on, which is called the Inner Sea, and I've been working on it for about a year and a half. And I'll be talking about one aspect more specifically. I'll be talking about procedural generation, because this game is actually done by a very small team, and it was a requirement for us to be able to produce enough content for the game. So, yes, I will start now. So, yes, who am I? Actually, I didn't know that Manuel was going to introduce me, so this is a bit irrelevant. Anyway, I've been working as a game programmer for a while now. I've graduated in 2007, I think, so for almost 9 years now. And in that time, I've worked in several studios in several countries, actually, because working as a game programmer in Portugal is complicated. It was, especially in 2007, it was very complicated. And that's something that I really want to do. So, yeah, I worked here for a couple of years, actually, in Game Invest and in White Dreams. And then I decided to take the plunge and went to the UK, after the UK to Spain, then to Sweden, where I was working at Ubisoft. And after that, finally, I decided to come back to Portugal for a bunch of reasons. But the big one was that I actually wanted to create something for myself, which is not going that bad, I guess. So that's me. So, like, what's the issue here? Like, what am I talking about here about procedural generation? I want to give you a bit of background on why I chose this path. So one of the reasons is, as I mentioned before, is we're an extremely small team. I'm the only guy working full-time on the game, and I'm working as a programmer, because that's what I've done for a bunch of years. And for the first time as well as a game designer. So we'll see how that goes. And there's another dude working with this with me on this, sorry, which is Antoine. He's doing all the art. But he actually has a full-time job. He works at a company in the UK. So he did all the art for the Inner Sea in his spare time, which was tough. So that's one of the reasons why procedural generation plays such a big part on this game, because I didn't have an army of artists, right? I had one artist to do all the art, and I really wanted the game to be, visually interesting. So I've decided early on that when you see the map is composed by a bunch of islands. And I've decided early on that I wanted those islands to be diverse and interesting. And at the time, Antoine proposed we would do like Lego blocks of islands, and then we would glue them all together, and they would create something. But we didn't really have the manpower to do loads of island blocks that would actually allow for diversity in the game. So, I'm sorry. This is on purpose. So this was on purpose, so I just wasted a bit of time. I'm joking. Anyway, where was I? Oh, so yeah, Lego blocks, right? So we didn't really have the manpower. We didn't really have enough people to do loads of blocks that would allow for diversity in the game. Loads of different islands. So I started working on algorithms to actually generate the geometry of the islands. And that's what I'm going to talk about more specifically. But this is directly due to the fact that we're so few guys, and basically I was the only one full time. So that's it. I'm going to show you like a little video of the game now, because I'm not sure if you're probably not familiar with it. So you know what I'm talking about.
Snared in the teeth of a storm, the like of which even the saltiest tars in our crew had never seen afore. Waves the size of mountains battered us mercilessly, fore and aft, splintering the masts like kindling. Desperately clawing at any handhold as the mates disappeared, wailing overboard. Crippled and wounded and trailing our rigging, we fought our way to the eye of the storm, where we found uncharted islands in an unearthly calm. Over untold centuries, others had gone before us and peopled these strange lands. Some friendly, others spoiling for war and plunder. But more terrifying by far were the denizens that lay in wait beneath the waves of the inner sea.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about, right? You saw, as you can see, this is a map, a possible map of one of the options actually, one of the possibilities of the inner sea of the game, and this is what you're exploring. So as you can see, like the islands are, they're at the core of the experience of what you're discovering, exploring, and experiencing. And some of the islands have cities, and they have other props and stuff like that. But basically, because the game is every time you play, there's a different map for you to explore. Because you wouldn't be exploring a lot if you played once and you knew the map. You knew exactly where that island would be next time. That wouldn't be very interesting. At least I didn't think so. But maybe I'm wrong. Anyway. So this is a possible map, and I'm showing you a couple of them. This is another one. This is another one. So there's still a lot of stuff I want to do with the map, because the game is currently, it's out actually, but it's in early access, and I'm still working on it, improving it. And there's some stuff that I still want to do with the map, like island groups, island chains, that kind of stuff. And we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I'm going to start with island generation here, and I hope I don't get super technical. Oh, it's a PC and Mac game. Yeah, okay. We can do Q&A after. Oh yes, so I'm talking about island generation, right? This is at the core of what the map is, right? Because you're basically exploring and discovering loads of islands, and I'm gonna show you how I do that, and I hope it's not super confusing and technical, and you actually get what I'm saying anyway. But otherwise, you can tell me later if not. So how does an island, starts by how do I create an island first? I'm going to do a step-by-step here a little bit, explaining the algorithm, which is at the base of everything. And it starts with generating a random polygon, like a random shape. And this is done by actually using a circle, the circle equation, let's say. So there's a bunch of parameters that I can pass on to the method, the function that actually generates this random polygon. And there's like minimum, maximum radius of the island. There's a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to cover that in detail because it's probably not very interesting. I'm just going to explain here the main idea of what's at the core of the island generation algorithm. So it starts with a circle-like equation, right? You can calculate a position by using sine and cosine. Anyway, yes. Anyway, I generate. Let's say this is this is the center. Actually, it's not, but you'll see later why I did this. So I generate the first point with the angle 0. Because basically a circle is 360 degrees, right? If you divide that, if you iterate on that angle by whatever you want, you can iterate on the angle, and then you'll generate the first on angle 0 here. You'll generate the second here, whatever you want, right? And that will actually lead to create a polygon. If I generate, like for example, 4 more points or 3 more points in this case, by iterating on the circle and on the variation of the radius, I can create further points. And then if you look at it, it starts to create a shape, right? If you take it all the way, it actually creates a random polygon like this. And this is the basis of all islands generation, propping, and a bunch of stuff. Because out of this, you get this, right? It's a shape there, and you've generated an island. Now, the interesting bit here is actually, procedural generation has two main components usually. One of them is the generation algorithm in itself, and that's actually very easy. As you can see, this is a very easy algorithm to code, honestly. The interesting bit here is choosing interesting islands. So deciding on what is, because this algorithm can give you absolute crap, like you wouldn't want that in the game. So one of the steps of procedural generation is validation, validation of the results that you had. So how do you decide that this is an interesting shape, that you're happy with this shape and you want to use it or not? Because it could be absolute crap, like all jagged or whatever. So usually it comes into 2 steps, right? You have like a generation routine and routine. Yeah, I think this is English. And you have a method, whatever function. And you have a validation one. And the validation one picks up the result of the generation of the results of what you generated, and looks at it and says, yeah, this is okay, or no, this is crap. You can't use it. And in this case, like, this generation, it is not a person looking at it and saying, yeah, I think it feels good. So you got to code as well the rules that make a shape good. In this case, for me, a shape is good when there's a very specific actually thing, which is like if you come here and you see, this is just a set of points, a group of points, right? A list of points, basically. And what you do is you generate, you can get a direction between points, right? Through basic vector maths. So like from here to here, it's a direction, a vector. And from here to here is, a second vector. And what I do is I see the angle between these 2 vectors and see if it's within a certain margin, right? In this case, I think it has to be smaller than 90 degrees, if I'm not wrong. And why do I do this? Because one of the possible outcomes of this algorithm could be like if I generated a point instead of this point being here, if it was here, it would create this. And this looks awful in the game, right? So usually in procedural generation, there's those two steps involved. You have a routine that generates stuff and one that validates as actually being useful for you. Because actually generating algorithms that are all the times right, always generates good results. That's very difficult to accomplish because there's always outliers and exceptions, and sometimes you want a bit of like total randomness. So it's more interesting. So validation of your results is very, very important. Yes, exactly. Okay, so also if you look at it, you can see it's this is like a side view of the game, and you can see like okay, you generate a polygon, but this is actually in 3D, right? It has height. So how do you do that? How do you create like a 2D polygon and create like a 3D mesh out of it? So if you look at it, you actually, by generating the first polygon, as you can see here, is what I generated before was the surface of the island. I've outlined here in white the bit that we generated previously. So with that generated, you can just triangulate that polygon. This is trivial to The second step here in this case is making it 3D, right? Giving it height. And for that, you need to generate these cliffs here. It's, as you can see, right? And this is actually very easy to do as well, because you already have all the information that you need. By having, directions here, the directions between the points, you know where the vector is going, right? And from that, you can calculate the, if you do, it's an operation called cross. You have the dot product and the cross product, yes? Yes? Yes. And you can calculate the right vector of the direction, right? Of this vector's direction. By if you cross it with vector 1 in terms of height, right? Vertical, you get the right, the outlying vector, right? This is, well, this is crucial for games in general, and well, gameplay and graphics programming anyway. So by knowing where the right of the direction is, you can just create this. Right? You have, how meshes work, right? They're just a collection of points, geometry in the world that has normals and that kind of stuff. Yes? I don't see any, I see people nodding, but I don't see yes. Yes, okay. Okay, so basically a mesh is a group of points, right? You just you pass on a list of points to the graphics driver, and he assumes that these triangles, well, it doesn't need to be triangles, but in this case it is triangles. And he assumes that actually forms a triangle, and then he tries to render with that. So you had the two previous points you already had, because it was the polygon that we generated earlier, right? And the third point, here, down here, you just generated by the way that I told you, to the right and down in the ground, rising the rest of the polygon up. And with that, if you order your, pass the information correctly to the graphics driver, you can create a mesh with this, right? First triangle, and then the next point is exactly the same information, and you can generate it, and you can generate a second triangle, and you can keep going and generate all the mesh, right? All the sides. And then the way we render this is by using the normals. This is a bit more esoteric here, or at least I thought I was really clever when I did this. I'm not sure I am, actually, but the normals of this plane here on the top, they point up, right? And of these planes here on on the side, the cliffs, they point like, you know, not up. And in the shader where I'm rendering, by doing the dot product and seeing and comparing it to the vertical direction, I can see if it's a face pointing, you know, horizontally, or if it's a face pointing up. And then I can choose correctly the texture that I want to use it to render. Yes? And then there's a bunch of more smart stuff going on, like projected projected texture mapping, and loads of stuff that I'm not going to talk about because probably you just die and get bored as fuck. I didn't say that? Anyway. Yes. Okay. So, so that gives us the basic shape, right, of the island. Yes? And as you can see, there's loads more going on there, actually. There's trees and bushes and rocks, for example, right? And yeah, those are not procedurally generated. That was Antoine, of course, because you could probably do that, but it was a pain in the ass. So what we do is we prop the island, right? We prop the basic shape that we generated with handmade props to give it, you know, life. So, but by, you know, the first polygon that you have actually is all the information you need again, because using that you can, for example, here these rocks at the borders, they're placed on the points of where or the cliffs are, right, at the edges of the polygon. You just have to go through it, get the position of the edge, and just place a rock there whenever you want, right? And this was actually a big, you know, because without this it looks really boring, the islands. And with the rocks, it, you know, breaks away with the patterns and it creates like visual, interesting stuff. And with the trees and all the props inside the island, it's the same thing, right? They have like this bounding box, and you just check, is this bounding box, you know, generate a random position inside the island? And you just go and say, you know, is this position inside the polygon? Yes, okay, place a tree there. You just store that information and voila, man. Loads of different islands. Bam, out of the blue. How awesome is this? Not very much, apparently. Okay, so this was one of the big challenges, actually. It took a bit to get right, because there's a lot of problems that can go wrong. It's like, you know, now I'm explaining it, I'm thinking, fuck, man, this should have taken me like 10 minutes. It didn't take 10 minutes. No, it took a lot longer. Because there's all these exceptions and stuff that can go wrong. And procedural generation can be sometimes a pain in the ass, actually. But when it works, it's just beautiful, man. There's other advantages of having the map generated like this, because like if you, the map is the only thing that I need to save this map. So, you know, when you're like playing the game and then you leave the game and you come back, the only thing I need to save is the seed of the random generator. And every time I seed it back into the algorithm, it just generates exactly the same world. And this is like awesome in terms of saving game, because I'm basically saving like 4 bytes and bam, I've got the whole world into it. It's beautiful. Trust me. Okay, so this was one of the things that I wanted to talk about, yes. The other very important thing is, which is also generated procedurally, are the cities that are on the islands, right? Because when you're exploring out there, there's places where you can interact, which is cities. And again, we could actually, in this case, probably we could make specific meshes for the cities. There's like several cultures in the game. There's like they're called the Kin, the Normans, the Caliphate, and there's another one which is actually based on Portuguese and Spanish that's coming, but it's not yet there in the game. And you can you can find them in the game and interact with them. You know, do missions for them, and they go on at war with each other and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm diverging. Anyway, so one of the interesting things about city generation is I wanted cities to be also, you know, without same thing as the islands, without putting, you know, creating thousands of variations for cities, make them visually interesting and unique every time you play it. Again, a new game would start, right? So I took the same approach. You know, how can I go and, you know, from a bunch of assets, you know, isolated assets like, you know, like this, for example, is the king. This is basically Chinese faction. So how can I go from like having a bunch of assets like these, you know, a few houses, a tower, a temple, a castle, and actually create a visually compelling city and something that makes actually sense. You know, people look at it and it looks cool, which is make this out of that, right? And this is actually, again, I thought I was being very clever here, but probably not. This is actually a very famous problem, existing problem, when you look at it, because it's called, it's actually something usually studied in, well, it depends on the course, I guess, the name of the course, but usually it's studied in AI, yes, artificial intelligence, kind of like algorithms, how to solve problems, right? You've got the N Queen's problem, which puts, okay, anyway. There's like several famous problems in AI, and usually when you're studying, some of the things that you do is like trying to come up with solutions for these problems. And there's like loads of methodologies of how to solve these famous problems, let's say. And this one is called the bean packing problem, right? Or bean fitting problem, which is basically, and it's used for loads of stuff actually, which is basically, you know, I want to fit containers into a larger container. And I randomly get, you know, of different sizes, and I want to fit them so that they are either optimally packed without, you know, spaces in between, or that, exactly. And there's a bunch of ways to solve this, right? I'm not going to go in depth into the algorithm here because it would bore you to death. But I'm going to explain exactly how it works. So you get the first, I'm going to explain, yeah, how it works. So this is the container, right? The container that we have. And then we have like a smaller box that you want to put in this container. So you go around it and, you know, you find a place where to put it on, right? And then you've got like, and these containers, if you look at, you know, of those assets, they're bounding boxes, right? It's the same thing in 2D. It's actually completely 2D problem, right? So you're just fitting those bounding boxes of those assets into a larger container, which actually is defined by the city size, and you're just like throwing assets inside until it doesn't fit anymore. That's it. So you go, you put the first one, the second, a bunch of them, all of them, right? And you look at it, and it's just like boxes and stuff, right? So, and one of the things that I did also, because if a city looked like this, it would look very, very square and not very organic, let's say. So I've actually removed corner meshes. So like buildings that were in the four corners, I would remove them. And sometimes I remove them, sometimes I don't remove them, actually, depending on the type of building and that kind of stuff. Because sometimes it looks cool if they're there. So anyway, in this case, I'm removing them. So you can see, right? Bam, man, cities. How fucking awesome is this? Not very much, apparently. So this is a top-down view, as you can see, and this was it, right? You just like fit a bunch of bounding boxes into you know, a larger container, and that's it. Bam, city. I was so happy, man. You don't seem excited at all, man. It took me like fucking ages to do this, man. Jesus, man. No appreciation, man. Okay. Yes. I actually forgot to talk about stuff. How are we in time, actually? Yeah? Load still to go? 15 minutes. Okay. Oh, that's a lot, actually. Okay, so basically my slides, my presentation finished here, but I wanted to talk about more stuff. But maybe I won't, actually. Anyway, yes. Let's go and move on to the Q&A, and maybe you know you can ask me stuff, and maybe that's more interesting actually.
15 minutes were extra time, more or less. Okay, so.
Okay, yeah. So thank you very much. You've got my stuff here, contacts and shit, and if you want to get in contact with me, you know, go ahead and do stuff.
So if anybody wants to ask a question, please.
My name is João Pereira. I'm in the first year of Games and Apps. I'd like to ask, what was your inspiration to do that game, the Inner Sea?
Well, actually, at the time, I really like history, and you know, especially being Portuguese, I guess it's impossible not liking the discovery period and all that stuff. And at the time when I started, you know, thinking about working on this idea, I was playing Assassin's Creed 4, The Black Flag, which I thought it was like awesome. You know the ships. And I don't know if you guys played it. Did you? Yeah. I thought it was like fucking hell, man, awesome. And I thought like actually the Assassin's part could, you know, fuck off, because it was about pirates, that game. And then I thought, you know, it would be awesome, a game like this, but you know, actually, you know, pirating and doing your stuff. And then I started working on this idea. It came actually from playing that game. And then that allied to my, you know, love for the discovery period, exploration period, I don't know what it's called. Yeah, actually led to this game, I guess, idea.
When doing the island generation, do you have some kind of plan to also give it variety in terms of the textures and feel and general climate of the island?
Well, right now, no. It's basically they all use the same props, and the only thing that differs from island to island is, well, sometimes they you know, sometimes an island gets a mountain, sometimes it gets like weird rocks, or you know, just a bunch of trees. There's some variety in there, but like basically all islands have the possibility, they're all using the same assets, right? So in terms of like climates, as you were talking about, I did consider it in the beginning, and maybe we'll add that further on, because it would be cool, like, I don't know, if for example, Caliphate islands would be more like desert-like. It would be kind of cool. But I'm not sure, because, well, it's a game, I can do whatever I want, I guess. Yeah, of course. Because I was thinking, you know, it's a group of islands, they're all at the same latitude. It's a bit weird if they have like deserts and ice. But it's a game, yes, I can do it. Although, not at the moment, it's not done, no.
I'm George, and I wanted to ask what language was all of this programmed in?
So it's all done in C++, and trust me, you want to learn C++ if you want to work in the game industry. It's not like you can't work on other stuff, but it's very, very important. Like, if you go to a big studio, they'll be using C++. Yeah. But this game itself actually was all made from scratch. So I'm not using like a commercial engine. I rolled out my own framework because I like to code and I'm a bit nuts. But apart from that, no, yeah, it's because I really enjoy coding and I like the lower level parts as well, not just the gameplay. So I decided to do this, all of it. Yeah, that's it.
All right, thanks.
Hi, I'm Bruno. First of all, the concept for the for the random generation, it's awesome. So congratulations.
Someone that thinks so, huh?
No, well, I have some background in architecture. I was first studying in architecture, and when I was there, there was already a tendency or a model for creating random generated designs in architectural and in urban planning. So that's part of the building shape grammar for cities and well, the settlements. It's quite awesome. I'm wondering if you like studying the history and the context of those settlements, if you dived in like real concepts for creating those settlements. And another question is if you are thinking on implementing a change in the elevation inside the islands, for example, in the future.
Yes. So like for the first question, not really, man. It's basically random. So whenever like there's a collection of objects, but there's actually when generating the cities there are no rules. You could add that. For example, you could place a big building at the center of the city and then radiate from that. Those kinds of things. But right now they're actually random. I just I have a certain city size because they come in sizes. You can have like a capital or a city or an hamlet. And then I just like throw assets inside and while they fit, and when they stop fitting, that's a city. Incredibly, it generates interesting patterns, which is cool. For your second question, I did toy around with adding, and I did implement it, adding height variation, but it created loads of issues. Because one of the things that would be cool was having like beaches, right? If you look at the islands, they're surrounded by these like stain, right? That's supposed to be shallows. Everyone thinks it's sand, but it's supposed to be shallows. Like you can still navigate on it, sail on it. I don't know. So I actually wanted beaches on the islands, right? But it looked really weird, and I had to drop the idea. But with some extra time, it would be doable because it's actually quite easy to implement. It was just sometimes like from a triangle to other, the height variation would be too steep, and it would look like crap. It would look like a game from Nintendo 64, something like that. It's just like, no, it can't be.
Well, okay. And now you spoke about the steep of the inclines. You could do like the England Iceland landscape, like you have those steep hills.
Yeah, like cliffs and
very high, and then those
true.
Those less steep would be the beaches.
Yeah, true. I would just need to find a way to make that look cool instead of just green and bad, I guess. But yeah, you could. If you put enough time in it, you can do anything. That's it's true. Trust me.
What's the gameplay like? Yeah, I saw a ship going around, multiple ships. You can control multiple ships, I guess.
You can, yeah. The idea is that, sorry.
You can only like pirate and steal other ships, destroy them, maybe trade.
Yep. You could keep going. That's, yeah, that's.
I don't know the rest. That's just what I saw from the trailer.
Yeah, it's basically, yeah, the idea is that it's kind of like a sandbox world. At the moment, it's only the sandbox experience that you can actually play. Like there's no story elements, and I still need to add that. Like, you know, there are like basic missions, but you know, a quest line, a proper story, something that explains the world, that isn't present at all at the moment. So the only thing that you can do is the basic gameplay. You go around, fight ships, you level up your skills, grow up your fleet, armada, and you know, yeah, pirate trades, discover. There's other stuff that I didn't mention, like there's forts in the sea, and there's like resources that you can harvest. Like you can kill walruses and take their ivory and leave their corpses to rot. You know, it's not very nice nowadays, but I think at the time they were doing that anyway. Yeah, exactly. You know. Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Hello, my name is João. I'm actually finishing my thesis on informatic engineering, and I also want to be a game developer, game programmer. I know C++, I know all that, but what I don't know is how to break in the industry, how to get in the industry, because it's hard in Portugal, and I don't have to stay here. I can go somewhere else, but I don't know how to break in and what you should have. Like, is your degree enough, or do you have to have like something to show?
Yeah. Okay, so it's very tough to break into the game industry. It's true, especially in Portugal, because in Portugal, I think nowadays you've got Miniclip, so you can actually start with that. And I'm not sure about this, but I think they've grown to like huge. They're like huge company now, because I thought they were smaller, but someone told me like, yeah, like loads of people now. So I think they're like the only actual, you know, not trying to diminish the other people, you know, working in the industry and the other companies, but they're the only proper, you know, with stability and funds actually developing games in Portugal, as far as I know. There's a few others, but well, they're a bit more advanced than I am, I think, because I'm basically myself and another dude. But I don't think there's like loads of opportunities in Portugal, even at the time, even if nowadays things are progressing more. So you know, you never know. If you apply to a company here, maybe you can get a job. I have an idea, but I would definitely say like you should move abroad. The thing is, as you were saying, a degree is not enough, and far from it. So you have an idea, man. Nobody ever asked for my degree, ever. When I finished, I was like, dude, I could just not have done it. You know, 5 years, you know, I went through all the things. No one ever asked for it. You know, no one cares. What people care actually is your experience, you know, and what you can actually show, and that you've done, you know. So a portfolio is very, very important, man. Doing like a game sample, like, you know, I wouldn't say doing your own little game, but doing like something that's actually visually impressive, or even in terms of code, something that's actually impressive. Like if you're into technology, you can do like a memory system, you know, that's with hips and that kind of stuff. But it needs to be. It's not about picking up Unity, man, and making something walk around. You know, that's not going to impress anyone. You need to actually, you know, codes, a mesh exporter, you know, implement shadow casting algorithms, something that actually, you know, people will look at it and say, okay, you know, this guy, I can trust this guy to come here and do his work. I hope I'm not being too harsh in general. Yeah, but it's tough. It is tough. Obviously, it's even tougher for us because we're in Portugal. Because, man, if you're in Sweden or in the UK, dude, it's way easier, honestly, way easier. Because like in the UK, there's loads of companies, man. You can't lift a stone without 3 game companies there. It's awful, man. It's like, dude, fuck off. So yeah, like in the UK or in Sweden, there's way more opportunities. Here in Portugal, I think it's very tough still. It was at my like when I started, and nowadays I think it still is.
You mentioned you worked in Ubisoft. What was your role there? What did you do?
I was coding technology. So I was working on actually the Division just come out a while ago, and they actually after they canceled it, but they wanted to do like a mobile client. You actually could play the game in Android and iOS, but not exactly the same game. Okay, the same game, but you would be a drone. So you're flying around and sending missiles and healing up your players. You would be like a priest in WoW, in World of Warcraft, like a supportive class, you know? So I was working on tech for that. I was working on picking up the huge world that the Division is, with like a crap ton of assets, and compressing those meshes into a format that was able to run in iOS and Android automatically, dynamically, without having to go like single-handedly there. I was working with that. The world itself. I was working with the build system for the Android, iOS, and like the platform code for those platforms. I was working on a bunch of stuff, man. Okay, so right in Malmo in Sweden, and I don't know about other studios of Ubisoft. Massive is actually a pretty cool place to work at, right? It has only one problem. I hope there's no Swedish people here. No. Okay, it's in Sweden, and it's cold as fuck there, really cold. I'm not talking, oh, it's a bit cold. It's really cold. And no, I'm joking. Well, I'm not joking. It's actually cold. But but no, like there were several issues there, man. I living in Sweden wasn't like super motivating for me. I was there for 2 years, and these are personal reasons, of course. But it wasn't like the most awesome place to live, contrary to the popular belief of what Scandinavian countries are. Although it's a very good country. But okay, I don't want to go into that very specifically. Working on a AAA company, Massive. Massive is a cool company to work for. They treat very well their employees. You've got like a large number of benefits, man. They make parties. They give you like cinema tickets sometimes. It's pretty cool. It's really cool. They give you breakfast and shit. It's awesome. And they pay well on top of it. So it's like, yeah, fuck. And the work itself is pretty interesting because you're working on high-end stuff, like stuff that no one else is doing at the moment. So that's like really cool if you're into tech. And for me it was really cool because I'm really into technology. I really enjoy coding, and it's nice to be able to have that opportunity because that's not very common. The thing is, working on a AAA game is a bit boring, and this is me personally saying this. Of course, there are plenty of people that like it, but it's so many people, man. It's like only in Massive there were like 300 guys and girls, of course, and it's just like when you're talking about a game, like for example, I'm talking about the Inner Sea. Everything that you see, or 99%, I coded it, and when I'm talking about the Division, like actually most of my code probably got scrapped. because the client didn't come out. But anyway, like even if the game did come out, I would tell you, okay, I did this little bit thing here, and I did that little bit thing of there, and what did you work on? And you're like, some stuff for like 3 years, and you're like, what? You know, like there's like guys there that are working on animation codes, and you know, for example, inverse kinematics or something like that. You know, like you've got an even terrain, and like your feet adapt to that. You know, there's guys that were working on that shit for fucking years, man. So what did you do? Yeah, yeah, you know. You see the feet, man, it fucking adapts to the terrain. How awesome is that? And everyone goes like, yeah, don't care. Do not give a fuck. I'm just telling, you know, these little jokes, but the thing is, you don't get a sense of that you matter. You know, it's like working on a factory. You know, this is my personal opinion, of course. You know, there's plenty of people that like it. It depends on what you like. I like to, you know, one of the cool things about doing games is that you're doing like all this creative stuff, right? And you're coming up with ideas. And it's cool if your ideas matter and if people think your ideas are cool. Because if you're just another guy, you know, there coding, and if you're tired, or, you know, they go and say, okay, we'll just put some other dude there, and he does exactly the same job that you did, then, you know, you're just a little tiny cog in the machinery, and it's just, it kind of loses motivation. I'm talking about a lot about this, I'm sorry, but one of the things I found, man, I love playing like the big AAA games, like Skyrim and that kind of, especially Skyrim. But you know, the big Elder Scroll games and Fallout and all that stuff, and Assassin's Creed and all that, it's awesome to play them. It's not that fun to make them.
Do you know about Ninja Theory?
Yes, the company.
Yeah, they will be releasing a game this summer called Hellblade. Do you know the story about it?
I don't think so, no.
So they're trying to make a AAA game with the budget and the team of an indie game.
Well, but indie game nowadays is very big already, because some people think that indie game, like indies, are less than $1 million in budget. And man, I don't know what I would do with $1 million, but it would not be indie. It would be huge.
That being said, will you consider expanding the Inner Sea game if the opportunity arrived?
The game?
The game, yeah.
The game will continue to evolve because I'm working on it. If you mean the company?
Yeah, the company, the game will be the. I mean, now you have that game. Would you be interested in, I don't know, creating a multi-platform game from the same concept?
Yeah, sure. Like I don't know. Maybe we'll. I'm still checking out if this is viable or how this is working, right? But if we're like financially viable, and if I have the opportunity to port the game to other platforms like consoles and stuff like that, I will do it. Yeah, sure. Is that it?
So,
okay.
Since there are no further questions, I thank Ivo for coming.
Thank you.
It was great. Thanks.
Thanks.